Hello, and welcome to the DCIFF Film Chat Podcast. I'm Erin Devost, and I'll be your host for this season. Join us for insightful interviews that explore the work of up-and-coming independent filmmakers from all over the world. If you're passionate about film and keen to learning about the creative process from the future cinema greats, this podcast is a must-listen for you. Our mission is to provide listeners with the engaging and informative conversations about successful and innovative films, including features, shorts, documentaries, animation, and web series from across the globe. The DCIFF Film Chat Podcast is a unique opportunity for independent filmmakers to have their voices heard in a way no other film festival can provide. You can listen to the DCIFF Film Chat Podcast on all podcast platforms or visit our website at DCIFF-indie.org/DCIFF-podcast. Thank you. And today we have guest Andrew Schwarz. He is the director of The Session. And so, I would love for Andrew to introduce himself, to talk a little bit about the film. I didn't want to give too much away there. So,
thank you, Erin Devost. So my name's Andrew Schwarz. I hail from New Jersey, and I'm an independent filmmaker. And I'm here with The Session, and it's a short film, and I call it a supernatural drama. It sort of defies genres a little bit. It's unique in that it's a thriller, but it's also mostly a drama. But there are also, like I said, supernatural elements to it. But mainly it's about a young woman who gets a call from a mysterious, strange, clairvoyant woman, or so she claims she is. And the clairvoyant says that she's contacted the girl's dead mother. And she implores the girl to come to her creepy house for a medium session where she will try to mediate between this young woman and her deceased mother. Mm. And it's about what happens during that session.
Wow.
So...
I
can't give too much away, but that's mainly what it's about.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, it seems like, even your description was very chilling in that aspect. Have you always filmed horror type movies or?
Yeah, that's a good question because I love all sorts of movies, but my favorite is definitely horror. Mm-hmm. I don't even consider this straight up horror. Mm-hmm. I made another movie called Cabinet in the Woods, but that's more of a mystery thriller. So I haven't actually made a horror movie yet.
Interesting.
But because I like to sort of splice genres together, do interesting different things with story. But I love horror. It's my favorite. I collect horror films. I have a physical media collection of horror from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Hundreds of titles, very rare and very interesting, different kind of stuff, indie stuff. So I love horror, but I like things that are very cerebral too. So I like I guess you could call it elevated horror, mm-hmm. which is sort of a term I've come to hate, so I don't even know why I'm using it. But I do really enjoy horror a lot because it invokes so much emotion and it's so fascinating. You can do anything with it and graft your style onto it in whatever way you want. It's very free.
Yeah.
So I like to incorporate horror elements into the very dramatic stories that I write and direct. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, no, well said. Yeah, I know I straight up was just it's horror, but yeah, it's definitely more than that. And being able to, I don't know, the way that I see a lot of thrillers or kind of this aspect of movies, just kind of seeing not only just the suspense of it, but kind of a deeper meanings behind that too. Is there, was there inspiration that was behind this film? Did this something?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. It's hard to talk about that without giving something away. But
yeah,
I will say that a lot of my films are inspired by a very poignant moment in my life or something that's happened to me that has an emotional charge to it.
Yeah.
And some years ago, I was delivering pizza in my early 20s. And it was Halloween night. And it's the busiest night of the year for pizza delivery, especially around New York City. Mm-hmm. And we were just so backed up with orders and there was so much traffic. I was in a residential area and I was going too fast. And there was a child that was in a Halloween costume and I barely saw them and I almost hit the child. And this this kid was like 3 years old. And I heard the mother scream bloody murder as I was approaching the kid, and I just barely missed him.
Yeah.
So, and I just froze in terror. I didn't even stop. I just froze, and I couldn't even take my foot off the gas pedal because I was so paralyzed with fear.
Yeah.
And I really imagined what kind of chaos that could have caused had that gone a little bit differently, if I didn't miss the kid by a couple inches.
Right.
And that was really the inspiration for this movie. I can't say how it connects to it, but that's mainly what happened. And I subconsciously wrote the movie about that, because I figured out after I wrote the movie, after I made the movie, that's why I did it.
Yeah.
It was just very natural and organic. So, terrifying.
Terrifying. Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's very, without giving too much away, I totally get that. But also, like, those experiences that can really move us and to want to, whether like explore it or see like if there's further, I guess like developments based on that. And then, now I'm thinking about it, like, what is your favorite horror movie? I didn't ask that. Or favorite movie.
That's a hard one. Yeah, there's so many, because there's so many subcategories of horror. Yeah. Which makes it a difficult answer. There's subcategories of comedy, some of drama, but horror just has a huge gamut, But my favorite of all time, I usually like to say, there's a devastating film from 2008 called Martyrs, from France. By Pascal Laufier, that was just absolutely riveting and terrifying. That's probably the best horror movie I've ever seen, especially in the modern era. Overall, I would probably say either The Exorcist or The Thing, the John Carpenter The Thing from 1982.
That's come up a lot too.
So, it's a huge cult phenomenon. Like, it didn't make much money when it came out in '82 because it was eclipsed by E.T., which came out the same year, which is another friendly alien, and then no one wanted to go see mean aliens in a movie. So it really got killed by that. But then it's developed a huge cult following afterward, and now it's considered one of the greatest horror films ever made.
Wow. Yeah. No, that's great. Like, a lot of folks, Andrew's also part of the Chills and Thrills segment of the DCIFF Film Festival. So it's really cool to see, and you guys are all going to talk together, like on a panel, and discuss your film. So definitely looking forward to that. And we're going to share clips of it too in this interview as well. So
awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because, as maybe you can tell, but I love talking about horror, but I don't like to talk too much about it to the point where it's boring. I like to have conversations about it. I like to ask how other people feel about certain things. What scares you? Everyone's scared by different things. What do you want to see that's titillating and fun versus what just makes you want to leave the room and go vomit in a garbage can? Those are two different questions. True. What style of horror do you like, and why? Do you like to watch it alone? Do you like to watch it with friends? There's just so much to it. And then there's, of course, the narrative components to it. What works in story? What worked in story 50 years ago versus now, and why? So I love to, get into the weeds with people about that are also passionate about horror.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And you'll definitely get into that more so later tonight.
So excited.
Yeah. And now that you kind of like brought up a few of those questions, like, what does scare you? Whether it's like, personally, or, even thinking like the larger film industry itself. Like, I know there's quite a few things that are, happening within the space. Like, I know given COVID, like, it presented a lot of difficulties and, budgeting could also be a factor. But wanted to hear your perspective. Anything to go into that subject?
That's a really interesting subject, because, first of all, no one's asked me that in a long time. What scares me? And I realize it sort of changes as I get older. Yeah. Right? Because your priorities change, your values change, your worldview can sort of alter and change. You have new experiences, and things just start to enter your life. I would say originally, maybe the big booming horror movies with huge scores and big jump scares and very fantastical and strange images, or gory images kind of scared me. But now I find myself being more affected by conceptual things, more cerebral things, more political sorts of horror, scenario horror. I don't have kids yet, but I'm also a piano teacher, so I've been teaching kids for 17 years on the piano, and so I work with children. I feel like they're my kids. I enjoy kids. I love talking with them, being with them. So a kid in peril is not necessarily fun for me anymore like it used to. So children in peril is definitely something that makes me, grab the edge of my seat. So yeah, those are things that definitely scare me more and disturb me, because I also think those are kind of two separate things.
Oh, for sure.
Both of those, natural disaster things scare me more because.
Was it The Day After Tomorrow?
Oh yeah,
that got me.
Terrifying.
And, that was even before the whole before global warming really became in full force in the media. Right. I feel like so.
Definitely.
And then also, what is in that? Well, one movie that I know that scares me, and I still can't really watch it, is The Ring.
That is one of the scariest movies in existence.
I've seen it multiple times, but I'm the type of person that has a pillow in front of their face, with horror movies. So
definitely, that is one. And you know what? I don't know how close we are in age, but when I grew up, I'm 31 now, but when I grew
30, yeah.
Oh, perfect. We're the same age.
Yeah.
So when we grew up, we were in middle school, and that whole generation was terrified by that movie that came out when we were in sort of elementary school, late elementary school, going into middle school. And it caused this huge, just kind of, seismic wave of fear in our country.
Yeah.
And it was it's the age of video. It's like kind of the videotapes, and it was just so analog and physical and tactile, and people are crawling out of televisions because of a tape, and you're watching it, and the watching of a video, which internet videos were just coming out then, and watching of short kind of condensed homemade things was just there was a revolution starting with that kind of idea, right? And so that movie took that entire cultural wave, and it was just surfing on the edge of it, and it just rode it so well, and we were so scared by it. That and the fact that the Gore Verbinski just did a perfect job with that. I talked with a nerd friend of mine, John Bewley, who actually shot The Session. We always talk about how The Ring is pretty much a perfect movie. And it's also a movie that I would say that is perfectly scary in what it's trying to do, but at the same time, unfortunately, it's a movie that people kind of also love to hate. Sometimes. And I think that's something that you get when you have a movie that's so popular and makes such a big wave that people almost like to one up other people and challenge themselves and say, hey, that movie doesn't scare me. But to me, you have to go in wanting to be scared. You can't go into a horror movie thinking, all right, I'm going to just kind of roll up my sleeves with this movie. Every frame that goes by, I'm going to fight it and not be scared by it. You have to let it scare you. Enjoy yourself with the movie. Try not to be bigger than or smarter than the movie. Just let it get you. Let Samara crawl over and kill you. That's what needs to happen to me. So.
Oh yeah, no, I mean no, it's so funny. Even thinking about that, because when it did the phenomenon came out, I remember my first time watching it was at a sleepover, and hearing The Ring, I was like, oh my god, part of Lord of the Rings, I was not thinking no one told me that this.
And that's how the movie starts. With the two girls and the sleepover, and they're watching. Or they're talking about it. So
and then that's exactly what terrified me since then. So
what a perfect storm of horror, that movie. Masterpiece.
And then there was a painting of a lighthouse behind me, so I was like, what is happening? This is just
the whole 9 yards.
Truly terrifying.
That's tough.
The
lighthouse.
Oh, for sure. Wow. And then scary movie industry moving forward in this space today. I was kind of sharing this earlier too, how I feel a lot of films right now are very much continuations of each other. It's not they're fully seriously or series, definitely, but I feel with horror movies, you either have one or, The Ring, I think there was 6 of them, or something like that. Can you kind of see that like happening like with the session?
Wow, that's a nice, good, big question.
Yes,
and also alluding to what you asked before with the kind of my fear about the industry or that kind of a thing. I guess I'll try and put it all together. The industry of horror is a fascinating one because horror is just I'm never concerned about horror. That's my short answer.
Okay.
Because actually, kind of to go back to what I said before, horror has a way of attaching itself to the cultural zeitgeist, whatever it is, right? So it really reflects the time politically, spiritually, religious movements. Horror has a way of just sort of attaching itself onto whatever has happened culturally. So, and you can look through the periods of history in film in the last 100 and so years and see that in whatever country the movie came from, or whatever type of, school of filmmakers the film came from, what was happening politically at the time. You can see that in the horror and the fears of the people, of the masses. So I don't ever have, and then also practically, films that are horror films and thrillers sell really well because people just love that, even in lulls, even in like a period like the 90s, which was a real lull for horror. You still had your big monumental films like Scream,
right?
And things like that kind of took us through the 90s. So whatever is going on in the culture, horror will find a way to rear its sometimes ugly head.
And
that's usually a beautiful thing. So, whatever's going on. So, and in this space, we mentioned elevated horror before. Part of the reason I don't like that is because I don't know exactly what it means. It's hard to even describe what it means. But what I think it's getting at is that horror is becoming, I think in a time right now in 2023, that I would argue is very fraught with political angst and, different groups of people being very tribal and practicing a lot of hatred toward each other, censorship, banning of media, all of this kind of stuff. Horror is emerging in this indie sort of atmosphere through the cracks of what you can and can't say, what you should and shouldn't do, what side of the political spectrum you should be and why. Horror is finding a way to be more, subversive from that. So you have Hereditary, the other Ari Aster movies, Midsommar, and those are very fascinating movies, whether you like them or not. You have Get Out, which was extremely politically charged. Which was an only $4 million budget movie that blew up. So you've got these things happening. Robert Eggers is another fascinating filmmaker. He made The Witch, which was interesting. Then The Lighthouse, which was more like a Lynchian experimental horror that was shown in big, big theaters. Then he went on to make The Northman, a Viking amazing film. So it's a good time for filmmakers with unique voices in horror to say things that people in the outside world, outside of the theaters, are very scared to say. And they can either say them out loud, or they can kind of wrap them up in these sort of horror allegories, which is very exciting. So I feel like it's a time we're just starting a revolution of horror that is like that. This sort of indie horror that has a lot of commentary built inside of it.
Definitely. No, I love to see it. Even some of the films that, we're sharing, yours and a few others that really, I feel like, capture like those moments too. And
thank you.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say that myself. But, you did mention, how do I see that with the session? It's hard for me to sort of see my own movies analytically in such a sort of, a macro view of the culture like that, because I don't make them thinking about that. I just make them sort of what I actually feel I want to do at the time. I don't think too much about the why. But the session being a sort of genre bending or merging kind of a film, I tried to make as unique choices as I could. And I tried to not necessarily scare people, but bring them into a world that makes them a little uncomfortable, and yet not too uncomfortable so as not to think about what they're watching.
And
I think that other supernatural horror films, ones that I would consider are successful, do that very well, like The Sixth Sense, for example, which really kind of popularized and started the supernatural
That's true.
drama craze. That's a film that has story at the forefront, and yet there are some frightening images that are byproducts of the great story. And that's something that I love M. Night's movies for that reason. He tends to do that very well. And that's what I like to try and do. So I think in that respect, we are sort of seeing something that started with a Sixth Sense kind of start, where you had, instead of just these gratuitous images that are part of this, genre of blood and gore, or you're gonna see this exact kind of thing, or you're gonna see this exact kind of blood, or this kind of suspense, or these kind of images. It's a story that has a lot of dramatic grounding, that also gives you a lot of zigs and zags and images that you wouldn't expect, emotions maybe that you wouldn't expect. And I guess that's the elevated, in quotes, material, is that kind of stuff that's kind of works harmoniously with frightening images or moments, but it's really part of a dramatically driven story that you're invested in, just as much as you would be in, let's say, a crime drama.
Yeah. No, very good points made. And seeing like aspiring filmmakers, do you have any advice for them?
There's so much to say because filmmaking is so massive. It's like captaining the Titanic, and you're just trying to avoid the icebergs.
Right.
And how you do that is, specifics are very difficult to say, but I guess my biggest general thing is to just get as much experience and education as you can. Whether that's really helped me, whether that comes in the form of film school or online film school, endless YouTube tutorials for yourself, steady diet of YouTube tutorials, and everything that is film is something I always recommend. And it's free, which is nice.
Oh, yeah.
But attend film festivals, good ones, like the DC Independent Film Festival, and others that I've been to. Be part of the scene, get on sets, do stuff, meet people, exchange cards, look at other people's films and critique them, read other people's screenplays. These kinds of things are education and experience together at the same time. So that's the best thing that you can do for yourself. That and a lot of tenacity and never giving up. Yeah. That's the formula, if you ask me. Yeah.
Oh, well said. Well, we're definitely looking forward to seeing your film tonight.
Thank you.
And then for others or for listeners, how could they find you and follow Journey?
Oh, thank you. So I actually think that the film is screening tomorrow night.
Oh, tomorrow.
If I'm not
my
mistaken.
Gosh, yeah.
It's okay. We have a fan page, which is The Session, directed by Andrew Schwarz, or I believe it is at The Session Short Film. But you can also get clips of my work and contact information and all that good stuff at my website, which is www.andrewschwarz, no T in Schwartz, films, andrewschwarzfilms.com, SCHWARZ. So that's the best place to find me and my work.
Awesome. Yeah. And we'll certainly put it in the show notes too. So everyone can, click and go from there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. And did you have any questions?
I do have a question for you.
Sure.
What is a horror cliche that you can never get tired of?
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm going to do a sort of whiplash here, and I'm going to say I enjoy any horror cliche if it's used with intent and intelligently, and if it serves the story well. It's a cliche for a reason. So I don't ever get mad at horror cliches unless it feels very tired and boring. As a writer, I can tell you horror cliches are what get you through the script. But sometimes I start with horror cliches and then I break them down and they're not cliches anymore. So it depends on what serves the story. So that is my answer. But if I were to pick one, the jump scare. The jump scare is just too awesome, especially in a theater with full, hopefully Dolby Surround and big subwoofers, and it really scares the hell out of you. I mean, there's nothing better than that if you enjoy that kind of thing, which I do. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
thank you.
Sweet. Great.
Thank you, Erin.
Yeah,
Appreciate
no,
it.
thank you, Andrew. This has been a fun conversation.
It has. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Absolutely.
like, horror, like, is it like totally my favorite genre, but I love being able to like talk about it too. And,
Good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that. Because not everyone is interested. If they're not horror junkies, sometimes they kind of go like, they move away from it a little and say, hey, what's wrong with you?
Right.
But a lot of horror people are very astonishingly nice people, because I think we're able to just sort of we're able to get out all of our fears and everything by watching the screen. And horror people are very sweet people generally, and they're very interesting people. You pick their brain, you're going to get a lot of interesting things.
Right.
So even if you don't like the movies, it's nice that you have an interest in people that are interested in horror.
Oh, definitely.
So,
Yeah, because as you mentioned, like the situational horror films, like, The Purge, like I think that's one film that I'm terrified that's going to happen one day. Like,
Right.
Just seeing kind of like those situations, and like, as you mentioned, like the cliche, like the jump scare, I'm such a jump scare type person. So it's
Right.
just like, anything that like shocks me, like it's good to get scared every, like once in
Right.
a while. Like, and so I think, just get scared when you can, but be mindful of what
It's a thrill.
element you get into there. Yeah, the
It's a
thrill
thrill.
of it. Yeah.
It could be as just, novelty thrilling as much as you want horror, or it can be extremely intelligent, cerebral, metaphorical, as you want as well. So it really just spans the entire gamut.
Totally.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by the DCIFF supporters. We could not be here without all of you to be sharing this amazing outlet with filmmakers from around the world. If you are interested in supporting DCIFF, head on over to our website through the link description in the bio of this episode, or you can go right to the website, which is DCIFF-INDIE.org, to connect with us and learn more about our Future of Film programs, our festival, and also more educational opportunities in what we do with our high school students, community, and beyond. We look forward to your support.